So from a metaphysical perspective, the reason that eye gazing works as a spiritual technique or as a bit of a psychedelic is because when you make eye contact, you are always looking into God's eyes. Now, the reason this is because there's actually nothing but God. Yeah. Behind all forms is God. And really, like, it's not even behind. Like, all forms are God. Yeah. So when you look at anyone, you're actually seeing the universe. Basically, it's like the felt realization that God is looking at itself. And when God looks at itself, it feels itself. It remembers itself. It experiences itself. Yeah? So, you heard before that the eyes are the windows to the soul. Now, what you've got to see is that when you put one of these souls in front of another soul and there's a mirroring, the universe sees itself. And that is extremely spiritual. Now, there's a few things here that are really interesting. I find them really interesting, okay? The first one is notice the part of you that doesn't really want to make eye contact. That kind of doesn't want to do it. Yeah? Notice that's your ego. Yeah? Ask yourself, why don't I want to make eye contact? Why does that feel a bit awkward or a bit intense? Contemplate how if you really make eye contact and you make eye contact fully to the point where like you're just completely present with the person because you just surrender to their gaze. What happens to your ego? Really what you'll see is that the ego doesn't have anywhere to go. It's got God right in front of itself and it can't run away. It's just got to die basically. It's got to surrender. And the ego doesn't want to do that. Right? So it won't look away. That's normal. It's very human. Right? Human. What's human? Human is the same thing as ego. The human part of us, which is like the lower human part of us, doesn't like eye contact too much. Yeah? Honestly, because it's too spiritual. Because if you hold eye contact for long enough, it becomes very spiritual. It's almost like part of you knows that this soul mirroring, this soul gazing thing is happening. And also notice this, like if you looked at someone's arm, you might not feel any emotions. It's just kind of like a piece of your experience, like an aspect of your visual consciousness. But then, like, if you shift your gaze and you kind of look at someone, like notice the second that you look at someone, like you kind of feel something. It's like, oh, like I'm, oh, oh, you're there. Yeah? You're seeing the universe. If you contemplate this, there's a reason that happens. It's because the universe is seeing itself. Yeah? And when that happens, like we feel stuff. It might make you feel a bit nervous. But why? Again, that nervousness is on behalf of the ego because it knows ultimately that it's got to die. Yeah? But if you're able to, and it's not always easy to do this, to be honest, but if you can sort of shift into your higher self, kind of just quiet your mind and be like as present as possible, you won't feel nervous. You'll have nothing on your mind. You'll just be present. And then you will have a shift in consciousness. Yeah. And it might not be like massive. It might just be slight. You might just feel slightly better. And get this as well. Notice you just feel more connected. Right? You just feel more connected. But like notice, contemplate that word connected. What do we really mean when we say that? We mean connected to the universe. Why? Because we've just looked at the universe. So we feel closer to ourselves, right? Because obviously the universe is ourselves, right? It's you. So you're seeing yourself, and therefore you use this human language and you say, oh, like I feel more myself. I feel more connected. I feel more, out of my head. Why? Well, if you actually take the time to break it down and to think it through and to like actually make sense of it spiritually through contemplation, because that's how you do it. You don't just think. You sit down, you contemplate, you meditate on it. That's what we really mean when we say contemplate. You meditate on it. And the answer that you'll get is like, oh, it's because of these deeper spiritual reasons. Yeah? And also, just to share with you, for like most of my life, I didn't really like eye contact. I was kind of scared of it. I used to be kind of crap at like making eye contact. I had to like really work on it. Whereas now it's like, it's a spiritual thing. And it's not like I save it for some people. Like I don't look at some people like, I've realized like, no, like you're meant to look at everyone. Like, this is a huge thing, man. Like, my teenage self would have not like liked to have heard this, that life is about looking at people. Like, this is something I've recently realized. Like, you're meant to look at other people. Like, you're actually meant to. Like, that's what life is about. It's about looking at other people as you do stuff. Yeah? For a long time, and I still kind of do this, man. I used to be kind of like as polite as possible with my gaze and not look at people because I thought I was, sort of projecting my energy onto them. If you know what I mean. Nothing crazy, but you know what I mean when you kind of, you can feel your gaze, right? Whereas now I'm changing my perspective. I'm seeing that like life is more about looking and actually making eye contact with people and looking up and looking around. It's about that. Because like basically I realized like if you just like look down all the time or you look away, like from a metaphysical point of view, you're not seeing reality. Like you're saying no to reality. Like yes, the ground is still reality, but you want to look at reality. And like ultimately it comes from the intuition of, oh, I need to surrender to reality. So let me look at it. Like it sounds a bit weird, but just looking at others and just being okay with that is spiritual practice. But especially if you do, prolonged eye gazing, that is beautiful, man. Like, a number of years ago, I had a girlfriend, and I remember like my favorite thing to do with her was just to look at her in the eyes, like for hours, and it just felt so good. And I realize now, with hindsight, that I could see God in her, and that it made me feel so nice, and so it almost made me feel high, just seeing her eyes. It's my favorite thing, man. It changes the game for you, man, in terms of romance. Or like just people you really love. It doesn't have to be romantic. In fact, what I'm learning now is that like if you can, do it with people who like you almost don't want to. And like be okay with that. Like a couple of days ago, I was at an event and like I was having a really deep conversation with someone who I wouldn't always be hanging out with. Like he was kind of like the opposite of me. And I grew a lot by just being in the space with him. Because if I was a little bit less mature, if I was a little bit less like just nice or conscious and kind, I just wouldn't have spoken to him. But instead, we had like a very deep conversation. And I even said to him at the end, like, are you okay to end this conversation? Because we'd gone that far. It was like, are you good to round this off? And also, when you do this, have the courage to show your soul. Yeah, so don't manipulate your face into not being yourself. Show yourself. Yeah, believe it or not, this guy that I was speaking to, he talked about how he saw a certain vulnerability in me, and I knew why he said that, because I had no armor. I was not armoring my eyes with a squint or like a weird face or whatever. I was really showing him who I was, because I'm practicing on being more vulnerable. And what's really beautiful is I thought he would judge me for that. I thought he was saying he kind of judges me for that. He was actually saying I connect with that vulnerability. I'm that way too. And then afterwards, like when we finished, we both felt better, more conscious, more connected again, more connected. The more you do it, the more you see that it has this like consciousness altering effect where it changes you, it changes your state. You feel more love. You feel less fear. And the great thing is, dude, it's natural. It's natural. It's free. You can do it with anyone. When you do this, reframe it. Change the perspective of I'm looking at someone to I'm seeing a spirit. I'm seeing someone's soul. And I'm going to have the courage to show my soul. Because when they see you, they will see themselves. If you show you and you don't wear any armor, they will see you. And what you really are is the universe. And that will help them to show themselves. And they are the universe. And so because you took your armor off and because you put your ego down, you guys will see each other. And then you will feel unified. You'll feel one. And the best part of all this, because my ego has this, tiny little nagging voice like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't know if it's safe. The truth is, though, it is safe. Doing this is safe. Doing this is safe. So just remember that, because you won't always feel like doing it. You'll be in varying states of consciousness, and you might start out with ego, but then you might open up and you might feel more consciousness as you speak. Yeah, so don't judge yourself if you start with ego, or if you feel ego the whole time. That might happen. Just be very gentle with yourself. And also remember for the rest of your life that the other person's face doesn't have anything to do with you. If their face looks a certain way, or something like that, honestly, it's not got anything to do with you. People's faces just look ways. And what you've got to do is you've got to use your inner wisdom. You've got to use your selfless consciousness as you, instead of your ego, which would be like, but they pulled that face, that must mean something about me, I said this, I said that. No, dude, no. It's not about you. Most of life is just not about you. Nearly all of it is not about you, really. On the existential level, it's not about you at all. So drop all your egoic BS, just melt. And if that's hard for you, then practice. Practice with someone who you feel safe with. A girlfriend, a boyfriend. Yeah? And just realize it's safe. It's a game changer, this. Yeah? You can use this natural psychedelic and you can feel increases in consciousness, which are very pleasant, very warm as the heart. And my favorite benefit is, honestly, you just feel less fear. You just feel less fear. It just relaxes you. You just feel, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to call things there. My friend, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Lots of love. Take care. And as always, man, peace.